in an effort to pull back the curtain a little bit this morning, my son Hanel has both the flu and strep throat. It's been an exciting weekend in our house. So I do have a sermon, but you know, who knows? So asking for a little grace this morning. I'll begin with a story about my friend Talou. And actually, Talou is the first woman that I realized I had a crush on. And it's a funny story because it was my first semester in seminary, and I had gone on a date with a guy that I had been like, oh, he's good, he's pretty great. And, but then he decided that actually he really liked Talou. And Talou is like, she's like one of those people who everybody loves, right? Walks into a room and just like golden sunshine. And yeah, it's true. Nancy goes, oh. And she just kind of knew how to make a person feel good. And so she decided that she was gonna kind of like woo me. She felt bad that this guy had wanted to date her instead of me, so she invited me over for dinner. And she made me tofu and this beautiful ginger. She was an amazing cook. And by the end of the dinner, I was like, forget that guy, I like Talou. She's great. She was an amazing cook, like I said. She was an artist and a cook. And I was in seminary in New York City during the Occupy Wall Street movement. She didn't really think of herself as an organizer, so she invited all the folks who were down on Wall Street back to seminary afterward. And she would make a huge meal with fresh bread and salad and soup to say, you know, good job, or thank you, or I'm with you. You know, she's alongside. Well, my friend Talou, in June of 2020, learned that she had a brain tumor, an invasive brain tumor called glioblastoma. And she also had, by this point, 2 children. She had moved home to Nashville, Tennessee, where she had founded the Nashville Food Project, which was both a food pantry, but also a place where there were beautiful weekly community meals with fresh bread, soup, and salad. And she also, when she learned she had I'm forgetting the word. You can imagine that, not a tumor, but the kind that when you get it, you know that you will die. Glioblastoma. It's terminal. When she knew that it was terminal, she started to write essays in her Caring Bridge site that were just stunning, gorgeous. And of course, this is in the middle of the pandemic, right? June 2020. And, you know, they would just leave me, like, laid out on the floor, you know. And I thought about her and about what it feels like to know that you're facing the end of life and like what's going to happen in the future, right in the middle of this pandemic with her 2 small children and her husband. She wrote a little bit in one of her essays, which is now a book, if you'd like to read it. It's called What We Wish Were True. She wrote, "No part of an embodied life is guaranteed except for death. I think about everything I will miss, what I won't be alive to witness or to experience or endure or bounce back from. Part of my focus on the future is my desire to make a smooth path for loved ones in a tangibly helpful way. Printing family photos, revisiting our advance directive documents, setting aside gifts to open on special occasions, finally cleaning out the basement, and I don't know, ending misogyny in all forms. It reminds me a little bit of Simeon and Anna in our text for today. These elders who've been waiting their whole life to see the deliverance of Israel. Let's see. This is the part now where I'm like, wait, what's happening? Let's talk a little bit about this text. The author of Luke, through this text, is reminding us of just how Jewish Jesus is and his family. Every little boy, after 8 days, is circumcised, and every birthing parent, after 33 days, goes back to the temple for a purification rite. And later, firstborn baby boys are also brought back to the temple to be presented or dedicated. This is in honoring of Passover, right? God claimed the firstborn sons of Israel in Passover. And this is a ritual dedication back. That's what this text is referring to when Jesus is presented at the temple. So Jesus' presentation and Mary's purification ritual are on the same day. And we also notice in this text that there are some offerings that are given, 2 pigeons. And this points to actually the marginality of the family, the poverty of the family. If we know a little bit about the historical context, this is a small offering to the temple. But nevertheless, Simeon's song here, which is traditional, now it's become, you might recognize the words Nunc Dimittis. It's a song that's about gratitude for God's promises, about God's faithfulness to Israel, the deliverance of Israel, and to us. So last month, I talked a little bit about how I think about grace as the first step toward inner liberation. And I think about God's promise in this context as a way that we can think about hope. Simeon's song evokes, for me, a lot of the promises that we find in the Hebrew Bible, like Jeremiah 29. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Simeon is referencing this hope. But I want to pause here a little bit because the way I've been thinking about hope has been getting cracked open a little bit. I have been listening to a podcast alongside Nancy and Cheryl and a few others where there's a thinker named Bayo Akomolafe. And he was born in Nigeria and now lives in India, but he teaches at Berkeley, okay? And but he talks about how hope has actually been co-opted by empire and by colonization. This idea that if we just kind of point the way and keep going, manifest destiny, keep expanding our borders, right? You just work hard enough, do hard enough, be good enough. That's the kind of hope, this ever expansion. But Bayo says, what if hope doesn't come through the person who's at the stern of the ship across the ocean? What if hope comes in through the cracks in the belly of the ship? Perhaps woven into the beads of those who have been kidnapped and imprisoned and deported across the ocean. That's where the hope of Simeon was. That's the hope of Jesus. with hope of this struggle. It's where the cracks come in. So I'm wondering if we need to think a little differently about hope, especially right now. Because I've been noticing lately that for me, the ways of being that I've kind of taken for granted, the ways I've had for fighting, for trying to make change, for loving, for living, hoping, they're not working for me so well anymore. It's like a hustling, right? Fighting so hard, not stopping, not slowing down, kind of a denial of truth, not letting go. But I can feel in my body that kind of hustle ultimately would kind of break me and not break me open. So many folks I've been noticing in this second time around of this administration are taking a little bit of a different tactic. There wasn't a big women's march this time. This time I think folks are settling in a little bit toward hope for the long haul. We're going a little slower. Maybe people are engaging or disengaging with social media or the news, taking it in smaller bites to be able to show up to it again tomorrow. We know we're here for a marathon and not for a sprint. We're taking stock, we're getting oriented. But these older ways of being, this hustle culture, this denial of truth, are deeply informed by empire. By living within and benefiting from citizenship in an empire that, at its origins, stole humans, stole land, committed genocide, and that none of these things have been accounted for. We just keep going. And many have continue to use Christianity's core story, core liberating story as justification for these actions. Somehow, to justify the imperialism of this country ongoing. How is that possible when the basic teachings here are feed one another, heal one another, love one another, maybe hammer our swords into plowshares, maybe leave a corner of that field unharvested so that folks who don't have wheat can have some, built into the structures of how to be. But from the moment that the Roman Empire adopted the Christian story, it's been co-opted to take control of other people. The Crusades, to take land. Manifest destiny, to take land. Justification of slavery, to take people. All of it for power, for wealth. These are the trappings of imperialism. Our tradition has been used for control and for violence. So sometimes I wish that I could hear with my ears the message of Jesus before it was overlaid with all of that. I wish I could somehow go back to hear his teachings with the ears of a contemporary. And I think that there is a process that we can take, perhaps, of setting down our own denial, and it's ongoing. I feel it within me. Our own denial of our participation in the trappings of empire. To be able to get to the liberating gem inside of a text. So I've been reading this book. It's by Prentice Hemphill, therapist, activist, called What It Takes to Heal. and they speak of the gem that emerges at the center of interpersonal conflict. That there's a certain place where when everybody sort of sets down their defenses, that's the place where we can access the truth of what the thing is that we need to learn to find our way out. So this is also where, like, if I had had more time, I would have tried to integrate this better, but I'm just going to read from the book for you. Okay. Let's see. Prentice says, okay, I sometimes think about conflict like this. At the very center is a gem, or like in a video game, a set of wings or a special pair of shoes that make it easier to get to where we have to go next. A prize that can only be retrieved by doing the very thing we feel least compelled to do. We can only win that very special gift when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, despite the threat we feel. When we say what's truest for us, often, whatever it is that makes us feel small, afraid, and as though we've relinquished the control we thought was holding everything together. In a conflict, we're able to listen from a relaxed and undefended body. If we're able to do that, to listen to what's being shared, then something alchemizes. We're given access to our learning when we can reveal the wound that needs to be addressed. There's like 2 more readings I want to share with you. Oh, let's see. And Prentice talks a little bit about this kind of what we can learn when we engage conflict with one another on an interpersonal level. It scales outward to large-scale change, collective conflict, like what we're experiencing now, not just in our country, but worldwide. And we talk a little bit about how sometimes how we engage with conflict on the interpersonal level is impacted, right, by these larger systems and cultures that hold us. So, here's what they say about that. For a long time, I identified as strong. I could remain outwardly poised under tremendous amounts of pressure. I should mention, Prentice Hemphill is a non-binary Black person. It's relevant for this. I could keep things moving despite being tired or demoralized. I could take on others' emotional needs without breaking down around my own. The tropes of the strong Black woman and man are a story we tell ourselves that comes directly from realizing that somehow we are still here after centuries of oppression. It's a way to recover some of our dignity after generations of violence and fear. But the cover, the hardening that we call strength, is not just evidence of our survival. It also disguises a terror that there's an unresolved cruelty growing just below the crust of our society. An unresolved cruelty just below the crust. Right? It's like, well, I'll read the last piece. And they then go on to talk about conflict and ruptures that happen in society. Uprisings. The conflict that an uprising or a protest shows us is the visible breakthrough, a rupture in an ongoing pattern of oppression, and presents an opportunity for our society, its systems and institutions, to reckon with the experiences of people within it and to envision accountability that can change all of us. A living society, one that doesn't doom itself to what it can't face, has to find a way to listen to the heart of movement. So what I take in this is that there's a way that we can engage as individuals, as humans, with these larger frameworks to, if we're able to set down our denial of our participation, then we can get to the gem and start to learn how we move through. I'm hoping that makes sense. In the same way that, have you ever had a conflict with someone you love and you only get through it when someone finally says something that's like, oh, that hurts so much, but I get it now. I see what this is about. That's the place that I think we all need to get around the conflicts happening in our culture. And that all of us here who claim Christianity can do with Christianity. To set down our clinging to certain ways of being and try to get to the core gem. So that is where my hope is showing up today, and it feels a little bit like a trickster kind of hope. So it's coming in through the cracks of what Simeon and Anna were pointing to when they saw a little baby who would point the way toward liberation. They just saw the cracks, the light coming in through the crack. Okay. There's a lot here, but I think I'm not going to read it. There's just a little PS. Okay, so that's good. That takes time, right? What do we do until then? We keep working away at it little by little. We're doing other stuff too. Many of us in this community talk about accompaniment. This coming alongside each other, walking along with each other, offering mutual care for each other. And, my friend Tolu, as she was dying, a friend of hers baked bread for her every week. Bread was Tolu's favorite food, and mine, by the way. I'm like, I'm going to bake bread tomorrow. And when she brought the bread by, she pointed to the fact that the root of accompaniment, I don't speak French, but something like au con pain. It means to come with bread. Accompaniment is like that. It's just showing up for each other with bread. Even when it's hard, finding joy in the cracks, hope in the cracks. Maybe it's like Las Magníficas, showing their niece who's come with her mother for the first time in nearly 3 decades to their hometown, saying that what matters is the joy, finding the joy along the way. If we take it a little bit slow, if we go a little easier, I know this is like a big, rough sermon. It doesn't have to be so rough. So that's, in the meantime, what we do. Accompany one another. And then the trickster hope can steal in again. Just making room in the back. So, okay, that's it. I don't have a fancy way to end this one. I didn't get there this morning.